Hey, welcome to a new video. This is the first video in what will hopefully be a series of videos, or at least I'm thinking of it. It's something that was recommended to me by a friend of mine to do, and basically the idea behind these videos is I pick a passage in either the jazz repertoire or the classical repertoire, usually. I mean, potentially the pop repertoire. And I discuss how one might conquer this passage from a technical standpoint. And then potentially, depending on the passage or, if it's something from a jazz transcription, for example. Depending on that, I may talk about how one could incorporate it or do an analysis of it, or talk about how one could apply it to improvising or composing their own material. So today I'm doing the passage, I'm doing measures 15 to 20 from Beethoven's Sonata number 20, Opus 49, number 2. It's a sonata in G major. Oops, sorry. That one, if you recognize it. So I'm doing measures 15 to 20. Definitely a tricky set of measures. So let's begin. I'm going to go through these bar by bar, talk about how I might approach it, talk about some issues that the person who recommended these measures said they were having, and some issues I might expect to have if I were to, perform this piece. If you enjoy this type of thing, feel free to check the description for my Patreon link. I'll be doing more of these for my Patreon, as well as a lot of other stuff. And feel free to check the the description if you want to see more of these videos, and if you want to request passages to be deconstructed or passages to get advice on. And of course, the description will have 2 PDFs of the passage, one clean PDF and one PDF with my annotations with fingerings and some text notes, like some technical notes, things to keep in mind, things that might trip you up. So let's begin. So we're going to start with measure 15. I'm going to talk very briefly about the pickup, just because it really is strongly leading into our first note in measure 15, and I want to make sure you can see both my hands. So the pickup has an E, another E, and then it arpeggiates down an A7 chord. And then that slur ends, and we have the F sharp. So, as we approach this passage, I played through it a few times before the video. A big thing for me was pedaling. So, you'll notice as we go down, I'm playing this F sharp with 2. Even though, in measure 15, I'm going to be playing this A with 5. That's because I do not need to connect this with my hands. I don't need to do any... Oh, look at that. I don't need to do any connecting with the fingers, no connecting with the hands, because the pedal's going to catch some of that stuff for me. So... in the edition I have, it writes 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, 2. I prefer 3, 5. 3, 5. And you could even go 3, 5, 3, 1, 3, 2. And then catch with the pedal. So if I were to practice this, oops. would make sure I'm getting off that F sharp ASAP and make sure I'm getting on that A. Right? And that's about the tempo. I'm going to try my best not to rush. It's about 126, I think, is where I'm hearing it. Yes. Anyways, so that's the very first consideration of measure 15. We have this pickup, and we do have it slurred, and the slur ends, so there might be a slight separation between the G and the F sharp. And then the pedal is going to catch that F sharp. We're not going to connect the F sharp and the next A with our fingers. The pedal's going to catch it. So that's the pickup. Nothing special happening there technically. This might be pedaled through, in which case you wouldn't have to connect the thumb cross to the F sharp or to the G, depending on the fingering you choose. Well, I mean, I guess you wouldn't have to anyways, because it might be disconnected. I far prefer 5, 3, 1, 3, 2. I prefer that myself. I won't be connecting that thumb cross to the 1 and the 3, to the A and the G. I won't be connecting that because it's pedaled. So what I would do there is 5, 3, 1, 3, 2. 3, 5, 3, 1, 3, 2, 5. Excellent. So now moving on to measure 15. We've done the pickup. I have my 2 there. I'm not going to sit on it. I'm going to strike it and get off. And then here the fingering I like is 5, 3, 1, 2. 5, 3, 1, 2. 5, 3, 1, 2. Now, again, the reason here, my pedal's going to be catching this, right? Oops. So I don't need to worry about connecting the 2 of the C and then the upcoming A with my 5. I don't need to worry about this. Right? So without pedal, this would sound like... Do you hear that? That very tiny lift on that D. I'm just going to move my arm over there, right? I might not even think of lifting. I might just think of I'm on D, thumb is on D, and then my arm is just there, just on the 2, right? Some people might find a rotation helpful to get them over there. For me, I like to think thumb is there, and then I'm just on 2. I'm just there. That's the way I prefer to conceptualize it. It's a slightly abstract piece of advice, but for me, that's the most solid conceptualization. My hand is in one place, oops, and then it's in another place. If I get it, right? And now, with a bit of pedaling, you won't even hear the disconnection, right? So that's what I do there. I do 5, 3, 1, 2. And again, 5, 3, 1, 2. And I love when a fingering works for the same passage. A fingering works for the same 2 figures in a row. That's always handy for your brain, right? Keeps bandwidth going. So this just really feels like my arm is just tracking down, right? Striding back up. I don't want to say leaping back up, but you could think of it that way. striding back up. Oops. So of course if I was to practice this, I would never take it this fast. Probably be... probably somewhere like there. Now this left-hand figure looks simple, but it's deceivingly tricky. What's my tempo again? Now what I'm going to do here, the most obvious fingering would be 5-3-1. I'm sure there are people for whom this would be very comfortable. I'm going to tilt this down just a little bit. I'm sure there are people for whom this would be very comfortable, 5-3-1. Part of me prefers 5-2-1. The reason part of me prefers 5-2-1 is because it's worth remembering that your second finger is the axis on which your arm rotates. So I think I'm feeling it easier to rotate with my forearm, feeling it at the elbow. I think I'm finding it easier to rotate back to the D with the 2 on the F sharp. So I'm really liking 5-2-1. I think because it's making it easier for me to put this motion in a rotation in my arm. Now this repeats, the key to this figure is ensuring that the F sharp and the A are very light. Right? And again, without pedal, this might sound like poco legato. This might not really be connected. Right? Might not be that. You might find that F sharp and A sit a little better, a little bit detached. So you can bring out that D a little more easily. Right? Not necessarily going all the way down to the bottom of the key for the F sharp and A, but rather kind of skimming the tops of the keys, right? And then pedal will take care of this. Right? Especially depending on how much you pedal. So, in regards to the pedaling, what I'm doing there is I'm doing just like half or quarter pedaling, just lifting on every D and trying to put the pedal back down as quickly as I can. Usually, because of the speed of the triplets, usually the pedal will come down either just before or on the F sharp in the left hand figure. So that's what I'm doing there. 5-2-1, pedal, pedal. This is what my foot is doing, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. Sometimes I have a second camera for pedal work, but I dropped it and it doesn't work anymore, which is frustrating, but what can you do? Gotta make do with what you have. But anyways, so here my pedal is catching this, and I'll be lifting the pedal again on the D and the A, so my pedal will catch that F sharp. Again, this dissonance, well, not dissonance, but oversaturation, you could think of it. You know, we just don't want, I mean, you know, this section could be potentially lush, but we don't want it to be. You know, we don't want to lose our minds with it. You know, it's not leashed. So maybe a little bit of dryness is good. So I'm pedaling on every beat. Oops. And again, look on my right hand. It's just moving over, right? And moving in and out, right? Like you might notice I move slightly down on that C when my second finger's playing. Oops. Right? Something to think about. My arm is taking me there. Okay, now let's look at the second measure. Measure 16 in the piece. So in this measure, I really like turning my hand just a little bit with the thumb in towards the fallboard. And I mean a little bit. I mean really little. Nothing like this, where like my thumb is perpendicular, or almost making a straight line. But nothing like that. Like a very tiny amount. Again, rotating with 2 as the axis. Right? If I were to really exaggerate the motion. If I were to really exaggerate the motion, my elbow might even come out. Oops. And yeah, you might notice that part of the reason I'm doing 2 on these notes is a musical choice, right? I want to hear boom, ba, da, 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 ba, da, bum, bum, bum. Right? I want to hear that through the phrase, right? These triplets are going to be kind of an embellishment. In a way, what I want to hear is this. That's a big exaggeration, but in a way, a technical choice should always be informed by a musical choice, right? So I do kind of want to move my arm over, and sit on those downbeats a little bit, right? So that is a sonic choice too, although I do also find it easier, But that's true of a lot of technical considerations. Sometimes people come to me with technique questions, and many of the issues they're having are just due to the fact that they're not playing the piece, as it should sound, right? So things are harder because they're not doing things, the way the composer intended, which can be fun. Don't get me wrong. From an artistic standpoint, it certainly can be fun. But sometimes sitting back and just thinking like, well, what's actually happening here musically? What was Beethoven thinking musically? If he had a certain idea in mind, it's likely that his sonic conception is the most playable for that figure, right? Conceiving of it in a different way sonically can be really interesting, but it might also make it more difficult, because it might not be what he had in mind when he was, playing it, seeing how it felt. So anyways, I digress. Back to measure 16. And I really am now noticing accented thumb syndrome, ATS. It's a classic affliction amongst pianists with Alberti bass like this. That kind of thing. I'm really gonna make sure my happy with my thumb there. How can I solve that? I think maybe I think maybe turning my thumb in slightly less than I was, but still just slightly turned, like a millimeter, almost subconscious. Turning it in slightly less gave me a little more control. It also helps. I'm also finding it helpful maybe finding it slightly helpful to move my torso a little to the right. I feel like I don't need as much purchase in my right hand as I do in my left hand because of this difficult left hand figure. Right? I really want that support, and I really want, if I can, a nice neutral arm. Look at that, I'm speeding up like crazy. So that would also be making it more difficult. Is that the tempo? Oops. Oops. I do like that tempo. Maybe slightly faster. Slightly quicker, but even that is not close to what I was doing there. So that's totally not necessary. And what a great example of me getting caught in the same trap I was just talking about. Something becoming technically challenging because I'm making it harder for myself than I need to be. I'm playing it way faster than I have to actually play it, right? And I mean, it's not like it's bad to be able to, it's not a bad thing to be able to play at a few BPM above where you want. Like, it's not a bad thing if you're in a performance or whatever, or playing this for friends or family, If it speeds up a little, it would be nice if you could be in a place where it wouldn't fall apart completely. But also a good idea to make sure that in your technique, you have the control and you're relaxed enough that it's not likely to rush. And rushing can be your conception of time, but it can also be tension. People tend to rush when there's tension, or when something is difficult or not prepared, right? So it's a bit of both. You do want to be, ideally, you do want to be ready if things do speed up, right? You don't want to just fall apart. But also technique means being relaxed enough that it's unlikely that we'll speed up too much, Especially in classical music where people love to slow down. Great players love to slow down, Now in the right hand in this bar, I again favor 5, 3, 1, 2, and that's the pickup to 16. And then 5, 2, 1, 2. I really like landing and sitting on 2 to give the emphasis to these quarter notes. I really like landing on 2. So 5, 2, 1, 2, and yet again 5, 3, 1, 2. So yeah, to me, this is making it much easier to get the sound that I need. Now, something that I'm going to touch on this now, since measures 17 and 18 are exactly the same. Except for one thing at the end of 18, which we'll touch on. The user who mentioned that I should think about doing these bars said that they, if I remember right, they said that it was really giving them trouble putting the hands together. So for me, it would be really important to know what motions I need and to do them in slow motion, right? Right? And maybe I'll even lift there. Because I don't want that feeling like I'm going into the thumb. Because then I'll get ATS, accented thumb syndrome, right? Right? So that might be something I would do to think about the interdependence of hands here. Slowly. Right? So in this sense, the hands are a little bit mirroring each other. Right? So maybe something you could do to warm up for this section is some contrary motion scales in the key, maybe, for bonus points. Right? Because here my hands are moving in contrary motion. Right? So it could be that it's the switching back and forth that is tripping you up. It could be that the choreography is really different in the hands when it doesn't need to be. If it's the switching back and forth, I would take each cell oops. Look at that. I would take each cell, each switch between quarter and triplet, and just try to practice them. Another thing you can do is switch between eighth notes and triplets, practicing scales, things like that. Or, I mean, I guess this would be quarter notes and triplets. Etc., 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 right? So that's something I recommend. I know it's not particularly helpful for this passage directly, but I wanted to bring it up because sometimes valence things can really help us with passages that we're having trouble with, right? The way we practice other things, or what's just on our mind generally when we're practicing over a certain period of time can really help us with passages that are giving us trouble. So yeah. I'm lifting my hands together. This motion is going to become so small, it may not even be perceptible, right? that's not okay. That's pretty close. I thought I was rushing again. Oops. Excellent. Measure 18 is going to be exactly the same as measure 16. But instead of 5, 3, 1 here, I favor 5, 4, 2, 1. And without pedal, this would sound like this. I'm still lifting. I'm still lifting. I'm still getting my arm over there, right? Just because I can reach 2 to 1 doesn't mean I have to, you know? And if I can get my arm over there faster without opening up my hand position, then I should. Right? Now, this is possible to go to 2, 5, 3, 1, 2, but I prefer 1 because I couldn't get comfortable going back to 5 from 2. I felt much more comfortable. I felt much more comfortable rolling on my 1, spring loading it. Than I did on my 2. Right? So that's the only difference between measure 16 and measure 18, is the last triplet will be 5, 4, 2. Right? And look how my hand closes on the thumb, right? I'm not holding the chord shape. Right? And that's crucial. And here I'm using 5-2 on the last note of measure 20. And you can lift. And those are the main considerations. So we talked a little bit about some fundamental things that will help with this passage. Thinking of 2 as the axis of rotation in the left arm. Remembering that because of pedal, we don't need to be connecting things with our fingers. We can just move our arm over. Remembering that thinking of things in the arm will make will make our arms feel more integrated, feel more interdependent rather than independent, because they're moving in the same direction and they're lifting together. Right? So, one way that I really like to think of this is sometimes moving through passages, I'll say things to myself like contrary, parallel. Contrary, parallel, right? Or things like toward, apart, together, right? Because here, contrary, they're both moving out. Contrary, parallel, right? So they're moving contrary on the arpeggio, but then on the C, they'll both be moving in the same direction. So now they're moving in parallel, right? Not the same intervals, but moving in the same direction together. So this might be something is just knowing, and it's something I vocalize, right? Parallel. Oops, sorry. Contrary. 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 Parallel. Contrary, 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 parallel. Right, so this is something really important for me. Thinking about how my arms are moving together, right? Because there's only 3 options. They can be moving towards each other, they can be moving apart from each other, or they could be moving the same direction as one another, to the right or left, right? Towards, apart, or together. Those are our only options, right? Excellent. Was there anything else that I wanted to go over? Oh yeah, the one thing is that 17, 18 might just have a different timbre, consideration between 15 and 16, because repeating material, it's often a good idea to play it a little differently the second time. So maybe I was thinking. Excuse the mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes in that one. Let's try that again. Made some fingering mistakes there, but otherwise I'm relatively happy with that. What I was thinking was 15 16 would be full. 15 16 would be full. 17 and 18 would retreat a little bit, and then that would give me some room to crescendo through 19, and then finally end on a soft note on 20. Of course, that's one interpretation of many possible interpretations. But my point is, something would change, obviously, timbrally. But technically, it may not be all that different, unless you were really. Unless you were really going ham, you know what I mean? Which, you could, but, I don't think you have to. I think it can be a pretty subtle difference. So anyways, thanks for watching. Yeah, do let me know in a comment or message me if this was helpful, or if there are any other questions about this passage. Yeah, again, check the description for PDFs and for a link to the Patreon if you do want to see more of this kind of thing, and request passages or any other kind of content. Okay, see you.